Most elements in Revit have both instance and type properties. Walls are no exception. Some of the behaviors that we witness with walls are driven by each individual instance, and some are controlled at the type level. If you change something at the type level, it changes all instances of that wall. So in this movie, I'm going to look at some examples of each kind of property. And I have here on screen a file called wall properties, and I've annotated the file to indicate the location line feature. In the previous movie, we looked at a lot of the settings of the walls, but we haven't covered the location line feature yet. So let's start with that. Now, this wall right here is just one of the default wall types. It's the exterior brick on CMU wall, and it has a base constraint of level 1, and it's unconnected at the moment. But right here is the feature I want to focus on, location line. And if I open that up, you'll see that there are several options for that. Now, I've indicated them here with these lines. So the center line of the wall should be fairly straightforward. That's just the halfway point of the overall thickness. And you can see in this particular wall that it ends up sort of in the middle of the CMU somewhere. We've got our finished face exterior and interior, and I'll talk about how Revit knows it's interior, exterior in a few moments. But notice these three red lines are indicating the core. The CMU in this case is the core of the wall. Now, what we mean by core in Revit terminology is this is the part of the wall that's actually structural. This is the part of the wall that's holding up the wall. The stud and the drywall are just finishes. The brick and the insulation are also exterior veneers. Those are finishes. But it's the CMU that's actually doing the heavy lifting. That's what's keeping this wall up. So we can actually identify the interior or exterior faces of that core or the center line of the core as well. And that gives us our 6 possibilities. Now, if I switch to this view here called wall types on the project browser, I have that same wall 4 times. And what I'm going to show you is what happens when we change those location lines. So let's take this wall, it's currently wall center line, and change it to finish face exterior. I'll take this one, change it to finish face interior. This one here, I'll do core face exterior. And this one here, maybe I'll do core center line. It doesn't really matter which choices I choose. Now, notice the grips move to those locations. So there it's in the center of the core. Here it's on that outside face. Here it's on this inside face of the core. This one over here, it's on the inside face. Now, what we'll see here if we study this wall a little bit more carefully, and I'll zoom in just a touch to show you that, is the brick is actually on the inside and the drywall's on the outside. That would make for a rather strange building. So the other thing I want you to see here about the location line is that's where the wall will flip. So the little flip grip here allows me to change the orientation of the wall and flip it around and put the brick on the correct side. In this case, it's going to flip by this outside edge. And then this one is going to flip by the inside edge. And you can see it's a pretty dramatically different effect. So the location line works together with the flipping behavior to help you control how the wall shifts. Now, the other place that the location line is important is if you actually change the thickness of the wall. So if I scroll down here and I choose a different wall type, I'm going to choose something that's much thinner than the current wall, like this generic 6 inches. Notice that it still maintains the center of that core material, so most of the thickness was removed from the outside. So those are all examples of instance-based properties, but they have an impact on the overall layout. Now, what about a type-based property? Well, the fact that this wall has CMU and brick and drywall is all controlled at its type level. So let's take a look at how we access those properties. I'm going to select any one of these walls. The thing about type properties is you don't have to select all of them in order to make a modification. You simply select one of those walls, and then here on the Properties palette, we have an Edit Type button, and I'm going to click that, and that will load the Type dialog. Now, there's a variety of settings we could change in here, but I'm just going to focus on a couple. Under Structure, I have this large Edit button, and if I click that, you will see a table that lists out all of the various components in this wall. The exterior side is at the top. The interior side is at the bottom. So that's how this wall knows which way is interior and which way is exterior. And you can see on the exterior side, we have our masonry brick. Let's actually widen this window here so we can read those layers a little bit better. So masonry brick is on the outside. we have an air gap, we have our insulation. Structure, here's our concrete masonry units. Notice that the structure is between the core boundary here in layer 5 and layer 7. Now, layer 5 and 7 are just representational. There's zero thickness, but that indicates where the core starts and ends. And so any element that you put between those two is considered part of the core. And then that's further emphasized over here by this structural checkbox, and that's checked on to show us that that's actually the structural component. And then, of course, the finished materials on the inside of the wall are listed over here. Now, what if I did something rather dramatic? Suppose I took the substrate and I deleted it, and I took the finish here, number 8, and I deleted that, and I click OK. I'm going to click OK again. What you'll notice is on all 3 walls, that interior finish was removed. That's what we mean by a type level modification. Let me show you another quick type level modification. If I go back to Edit Type, let's do the coarse scale fill pattern. In a previous movie, we talked about coarse, medium, and fine, the level of detail. Well, here, the coarse scale fill pattern is something that gets applied only when the coarse view is displayed. So I'm going to scroll down here and I'm going to choose a solid fill pattern. But instead of leaving it solid black, which might be a little too bold, I'm going to choose this bluish purple color. Click OK. Now, notice that nothing changes. I'm going to deselect the wall. Well, that's because I'm currently in medium level of detail. So let me go to coarse. And what you'll see is, again, all 3 of those walls take on this color. So those are 2 examples of type level modifications that can be performed. Now, naturally, deleting layers in a wall is something you want to think about carefully before you do it. And perhaps you want to rename the wall as well. So really, this is just more of an exercise to kind of show you the possibilities and to help you to understand what it means to be a type level modification. But both types of properties are properties that you'll be using frequently in your Revit work. So when you select an object, just be sure to pay attention to what's available on the Properties palette. And remember that if it's right here on the main Properties palette, then it's controlled at each individual object. If it's here in the Edit Type dialog, remember that it's controlling all instances of that type. So it's a more global change. And if you keep both of those tips in mind, then you'll be fine as you use both of these settings throughout your work.